Hi and welcome to Russell's Football History. This week I had two potential avenues to go down in terms of what this video would be about. One would have been the criticism around Arne Slot, but I felt that obviously that story's got a little bit more to go. So I wanted to talk about the UEFA Champions League and match day 8 that's now done and dusted, and the final group table has been confirmed, because I've seen a lot of stuff heading into the games on Wednesday and a lot of the stuff coming out of the games, and I just think the spin on this format is incredible. But also take the spin out and look at the reality of it. This format is it's not great. People are talking about the drama. So, for example, Benfica on Wednesday night, they were winning 3-2 against Madrid. If you watch the stoppage time, they didn't think they needed another goal. They thought they were fine. And then suddenly, with about a minute to go, they realised they need another goal. They push everyone up front. They get a free kick. Free kick comes in, and it's the goalkeeper, their goalkeeper, obviously putting it in the net. So, from a drama point of view, that's amazing. And that is brilliant, but give me a Champions League season where you don't see drama. Now, I know you don't see the goalkeeper scoring every, in the 94th minute in a do or die game, but there's Champions League seasons have got moments like that, comebacks, unlikely wins, and etc. So people are trying to frame the Benfica victory and the way it came about as it kind of justifies this league stage, and it doesn't, because, as I say, there's golden moments in every Champions League campaign, regardless of the format, and even going back to the European Champions Club Cup. So when we came into match day 8, there was two things that, the first thing was that, a lot of the media outlets and fans as well were like, only Arsenal and Bayern Munich have qualified. And I'm like, but there's like 12 other clubs who are qualified as well. And what they never make clear, because they're trying to make it more interesting, is Arsenal and Bayern Munich are the only ones who know what round they are going to be in next time. So, I had a bit of a debate with I'm guessing they're a Man City fan, on Tuesday, and they were saying, well, Man City haven't qualified. And I'm like, they have. And what they were trying to argue is they want to finish in the top 8. And I get where they were coming from, but I kind of pointed the maths out to them. With one game to go, Man City, I think, were 5 points clear of 24th or 25th. They couldn't get eliminated from the competition. And this kind of argument has persisted, because even on Thursday morning, BBC, the headline was 5 English clubs qualify. And then in the next small print line, oh, and Newcastle into the playoff round. You're like, but that's 6 English clubs then. Another one, someone said, oh, this is a bad time for Spanish football. Only 1 club was qualified. And you look at it and go, okay, Barcelona in the top 8, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid are into the playoff round. So 3 Spanish clubs are qualified. And then the only 2 Spanish clubs to ever have won the Champions League are Real Madrid and Barcelona. And the last other Spanish club in a final was Atletico Madrid. So Spanish football is exactly where it's been for like 15, 20 years. I know that, Villarreal didn't make it through, and Atletico Bilbao, but I know Villarreal in the past have made semi-finals, but they're not exactly, up there with Real Madrid and Barcelona. So it's a shock if Real Madrid or Barcelona were actually eliminated in the group stage. And this is the thing. It is harder to get eliminated in the group stage than it is to actually qualify. Now, that's just wrong. I mean, Benfica lost 5 games out of 8 and still qualified. Now, you could say, but that was a kind of almost a one-off. But 3 other teams lost 4 games. Plenty of other teams lost 3 games. And this is the frustration thing with the Champions League. Every time it's expanded, you could lose more games and still win it. If you go back to the European Champions Club Cup, the format from 1955 to 1991, one defeat and you're almost out. It was home and away. If you don't win on aggregate, you're out. So you ain't losing five. You're not. You can't even lose 2 games. 1 game is the maximum you're going to be able to lose, and even then you've got to turn it around in the second leg. And then as the group stages have been introduced, and then the groups have been expanded, because initially the group stage only the top team would qualify. Then it was the top team plus the best runners up. Then it was the top 2, and obviously in this format, it's the top 24. It's becoming easier, especially for the bigger clubs, to just, to get through to the knockout stages. And that's exactly how the competition, what it's designed for. It's not to test who's the best in Europe. It's to get the best teams through to at least the last 16, but more likely the quarterfinals. They've got such an easy passage. I mean, it's just, it's just, it's a farce. It is becoming a farce. And yet the media spins it like, oh, but it's such, look at the teams going up and down. But the one thing I noticed this year compared to last year, so last year on the last match day, Man City were in danger of being eliminated from the competition altogether, so finishing 25th or below, because they'd obviously had a poor season up to that point in the Champions League. Paris Saint-Germain, I think a lot of results had to go against them, but again, they were a little bit in danger. But so the drama, so I tend to watch TNT Sports, the Goal Show, when it's all games, because I have that rotten luck where you pick one game and it's like 0-0, and then all the other games have got like 4 or 5 goals in. So I watch the Goal Show. Now, last year, maybe this was because it was the first year of the format, it was exciting to watch, and especially with Man City, they were qualifying, then not qualifying, then in the end they qualified. And I reiterate, they qualified not positioning wise in terms of top 8 or for the knockout round, but literally their Champions League fate was in the balance. But this season, because there was no big clubs down there, and there was no big clubs that really had that danger of not qualifying, and when I say big clubs, I mean the established big clubs. So Napoli, for example, they were down there, Champions of Italy, but they've not won the Champions League or the European Champions Club Cup. So when I talk about established clubs, any of the Premier League clubs, especially Man City, like last season, Arsenal, Liverpool, those kind of clubs, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Barcelona, Real Madrid, those kind of clubs, PSG as well. So there was none of that drama this year because, again, I think the Champions League, it's a little bit like what happened in 2003-04 when they changed the format. They removed the second group stage, and you then went to the one group stage and then last 16. And that season you had Porto Monaco final. You also had Deportivo in the semis. You had the first year of Roman Abramovich's Chelsea in the semis. So it was a bit of a strange one. But the following year it went back to normality with the more established clubs getting to the later stages and winning, even if Liverpool, that wasn't the most vintage Liverpool. And I think something similar happened last season in the group stage especially. So I think the clubs were a lot more prepared for the group stage this year mentally. And I think that's why you see that this year there hasn't really been any shocks or surprises, bar Napoli, but what's their Champions League pedigree? Quarterfinalists at best? I mean, Antonio Conte's record in general in Europe is poor. So that shouldn't really that's not really a massive shock. So, as I say, the spin on it, I think I just want to get through to everybody just to say, if your team finished 24th and above, you are in the next round of the Champions League, whether that is knockout round or last 16. All of this rubbish that people are coming through, that, oh, if we don't finish in the top 8, we're not through, go and speak to Napoli, Atletico Club de Bilbao, PSV, Paphos, Marseille. Ask them when their next game is. Because trust me, they ain't got a next game this season. They are out. So if your team has finished 17th or 14th, you are still in the competition. And the other thing people are going, oh, PSG and Real Madrid finished outside the top 8. Oh, what a shock. You do realise PSG finished even worse off last season and won the tournament. Finishing outside the top 8 means nothing. Oh, but they've got 2 extra games. So, the thing about the Champions League and any tournament is you time your runs to win it right. You could, like Arsenal won all 8 group games, and fantastic. And they could go on and win the competition. That's brilliant. But most teams, especially when you've got this kind of Mickey Mouse league format where it's harder to get eliminated than it is to go through, you don't need to win all 8 and finish in the top 8. Liverpool did that last season. Who did they get out in their first knockout tie in the last 16? Paris Saint-Germain. And they went out. So while it's nice, and yes, there's prize money the higher you finish, and if you finish in the top 4, you get home legs, as the second leg for the knockouts. That's great. But to be champion of Europe, you've got to beat anybody who's put in front of you. So PSG and Real Madrid finishing outside the top 8, who cares? They're through to the next round. It's a little bit luck of the draw when the draw is made. It's being literally made as I speak. But as I say, this format of the Champions League, and I think the group stage is pretty pointless. There was no where was the drama? Until match day 8, there was no drama, right? And people were saying, but on the old format, groups were decided. The first and second place in the groups of teams, the 4 teams, was decided before the last match day. Well, most of the places here was sorted before the last match day. All the clubs you expected to qualify were qualified. Napoli, maybe. But all of the other clubs, the established winners who UEFA want in the later rounds of the knockout stages, because that's where the viewing figures are, they had already qualified. Yes, they were playing for positioning, top 8 or not top 8, but they were qualified. I'm not saying the old format was 50 times better than this. I don't really see too much of a difference because, again, it's a bit smoke and mirrors. If you'd put all of the group games on the same time, on the same day in the older format, while you wouldn't have had the up and downs of the table, it still would have been entertaining viewing. So all that's really changed here is all the games are on the same day at the same time. So look, oh my God, Man City have gone up to 7th. Oh, they've dropped down to 11th. Oh my God. But that's not drama. They've already qualified. So you get the point. I think the worrying thing here is I know Benfica will most likely not win the Champions League, and Club Brugge, Galatasaray, 2 other teams, they've lost 4 games each. They're probably not, most likely not going to win the Champions League. But what this effectively does, and this will happen at some stage when, at some point in the next, with this format, is one of the bigger teams, your Real Madrids, your PSGs, Man Cities, Liverpools, whoever, are going to have a rocky season. And I think they're going to end up losing 3 or 4 or even 5 games and qualify and yet go on to win the tournament. And this is why I say it's designed to get the biggest clubs through, because, these big clubs shouldn't be losing 4 or 5 games in this kind of group, this league stage. But it's there in case they do. I think the other thing I just want to touch on with this group stage is there's a lot of talk about English domination. All 6 English clubs have qualified for the knockout stages. I just want to clarify what domination in European terms for English clubs actually means and what it does not mean. What it does not mean is 6 teams have qualified from a league stage. That's not domination. Oh, but Arsenal won all the games. English domination was 1977 to 1984. English clubs, Liverpool, Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa, won every single competition bar 1983, as in every single final bar 1983. So Liverpool twice, Forest twice, Liverpool again, then Villa, then you had Hamburg, then you had Liverpool again, and it was only Heysel that's put a stop to that. That is English domination, consecutive wins over a big period. Spain have done it with Real Madrid and Barcelona in the mid 2010s. It was either Real Madrid or Barcelona for 4 or 5 years, and some of those finals were all Spanish finals, Real versus Atletico. So that is domination. 6 clubs through, I understand what they're getting at, but it's not English domination and the strength of the Premier League till we actually win 3 or 4 Champions Leagues in a row. It doesn't mean that Man City have to win all 4 or Liverpool have to win all 4, but it's not Premier League domination till we actually hold a trophy. Year after year after year. We had 2019 where you had a Liverpool-Tottenham Champions League final and a Chelsea-Arsenal Europa League final. But that was one season. And if you look at the Spanish domination, not only were Real Madrid and Barcelona winning Champions Leagues and Atletico were getting close, they were winning the Europa League at the same time. That is domination. Chelsea's victory over Betis last year in the UEFA Conference League final, I think was the first time a Spanish club had lost to a non-Spanish club in a major European final since I think it was 2001. When Valencia lost to Bayern Munich. That is domination. So I do not buy into this domination yet. Yeah, okay, the Premier League, the financial strength, I get it. But domination used to mean trophies, and it should still mean trophies. Not, oh, they qualified. Because English teams could be out by the semi-final. It's happened before. So when we talk about Premier League and English domination of the Champions League, let's actually back that up with 4 or 5 of the next 6 Champions Leagues. That would be domination. So we'll leave it there. As I say, the draw for the knockout rounds of the Champions League is taking place at the moment. It's the only bit that is left in the Champions League with a bit of mystery, because you don't know. It all depends on where everyone finishes. So for those teams that finish outside the top 8 but have qualified, it's not just simple 9th place, 24th, etc. So that's the only part of the Champions League which is left that's actually entertaining, because who's going to play who, and then of the top 8, who would they potentially meet? So I look forward to this draw, when this video is done. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.